You might be sabotaging your first impressions and not even realize it. And it's not because you're making some big, terrible mistake. It's because a lot of the advice that we've all received over the course of our lives is incomplete. And if you take that incomplete advice and you apply to the wrong situation, you're going to get a bad result. So in this video, what I want to do are talk about 3 pieces of advice that need tweaks to actually work in the real world. When you add these tweaks, you'll go from sabotaging first impressions to really hitting home runs. And the first one that I want to touch on is this: a lot of people aim for harmony. In first impressions, they do not, under any circumstances, want to create conflict. But the truth is, when people cross lines, even in first impressions, the best thing that you can do is set a boundary. I want to give you an example so you can really take this home. This is one of my favorites. A friend of mine little ways back was at a company. It was a finance company, and he was presenting to the head honcho boss. This guy's worth $100 million, flies around in private jets, and was generally an abuser. Like, he was verbally abusive to everybody in the office. So he's got this meeting and he's pitching to him whether or not they should invest in a company that they gave him to research. And he gets around to the end and he says, so based on all my research, I think that this company is a pass. It's just too risky. Head honcho guy, David, stands up, looks at him, the rest of the team, and says, you guys, or everyone else there gets quiet, because they've taken this kind of abuse before, but my friend is not used to this, right? He's never been treated like this. So he looks right back at the boss and says, David, where I come from, calling another man A is the worst thing you could do. You would immediately start a fist fight. Don't ever call me A again. And he gets quiet, and everyone in the room gets quiet, and David gets quiet. A few seconds passed, and I'm sure they must have seemed like eternity. And David says, I'm sorry, I won't never do that again. Completely goes back. Meeting starts rolling, people pick up the slack. But what happened is, after that, my friend never ever received that kind of abuse that people in the office continued to get from him, right? That guy never gave him any crap again. It's because he set a boundary, and even though he was low man on the totem pole, he created respect. This is what happens when people cross lines. I'm not saying that you need to shout their faces off, neither. Am I saying that you need to do what most people do and just go, hey, it's okay. I've seen people do this in so many situations, right? Somebody makes a racist, a sexist comment that they don't like in a business meeting. Somebody shows up really late, doesn't respect your time. Or I know a girl in a business meeting, she was basically being hit on by the guy and didn't know what to do, so she just kind of laughed it off, pretended that it was just a joke in these scenarios. What you need to do in so many words to say: 1, hey, I don't appreciate what you just did, and 2, don't ever do it again. And then quiet. That is it. I'm not asking you to yell at someone. I'm not asking you to take it home. I'm not asking you to complain about it with your friends. If you do this, you will find that the boundaries you set create more respect in all of your interactions. Incredibly powerful. The second thing is kind of a light version of the boundary setting. And it's this: a lot of people hate to disagree with anyone in first impression. And it's because we know that people like people that are like them. They want people that went to the same school as they did it, like the same sports teams that have the same interests. So when somebody says something that maybe we don't share, we tend to gloss right over that and look for the commonalities. But the truth is, when you bring up things that are not commonalities, in fact, that you might be polar opposites on in the first impression, you create a ton of trust. Another example, because I love these: first time that I went to Brazil, I was in Rio de Janeiro, and I went to the Copacabana Palace. Really nice place. Don't know if they still have parties there. If they do, check it out. And I walked in, hung around for a while, and I saw a girl that I really thought was doing pretty. So I walked up, started talking to her, and I began to speak in Portuguese after a few sentences in English, and she said, oh my God, wow, your Portuguese is awesome. Like, you must be so intelligent. The people in this city are just they're not worldly at all. And that was a really nice compliment, but it kind of struck me as I don't know about this because I was in Rio, and I found that people extremely friendly, outgoing, exuberant, fun, and her sort of emphasis on these people are dumb was a bit of a turnoff to me. So I said, listen, first of all, thank you very much for the compliment. My Portuguese is only good. Not because I'm some sort of savant, but because I used to study Spanish. But I gotta say, for me, the most important thing about any individual is not that they've traveled to a bunch of countries or the worldly or that they have we're high IQ. It's that they make the people around them feel good and that they're fun. And she said, yeah, but fun is shallow. I would prefer a guy that was intelligent and worldly any day. And she kind of looked at me going, be that guy. And I was tempted I wanted to go, oh, you're right. You said I was this guy. You like this guy, perfect. We're going to hit it off. But I had to continue, say so. I mean, listen, I would take both, right? I want fun and intelligent. But when it comes down to it, the people that I connect with the best, or the people that spread good vibes, the people that are happy and fun, and honestly, if they're not the sharpest, if they haven't traveled the world and they don't speak 6 languages, they just lived in their city and they have kind of an insular view. I don't really mind that. I just care that they're a good person. And we agreed to disagree right in that moment. She said, well, that's not how I am, and we continue to talk. But what happened was that a tremendous amount of trust was built between her and I, because I was willing to disagree with her, and she was willing to disagree with me. And what wound up happening is that we did connect. I spent the rest of the week that I was there in Rio with her. She let me stay at her place when I got kicked out of my hostel and left me alone in her house while she went to work. And I do believe that a huge component of that trust that was built was because so early on, I was willing to say, listen, we might not be a match, we might not work out. And if we're not a match, that's totally fine. But I'm going to be transparent about it. When you let people know about the ways that you disagree with them, not shoving it down their throat, but you're saying, hey, that's not how I am. We can totally agree to disagree. I'm not trying to convince you, but you should know there's not my feelings. People trust you so much more. So that's the second piece to making a really good first impression, is sometimes the things that you don't have in common can be just as important as the things that you do have in common. The third piece is this: fake it till you make it. It's often misinterpreted. And it's a great piece of advice, don't get me wrong, but fake it till you make it applies only to body language and nonverbal communication. When you start using fake it till you make it, and the things that you say, that's when you run into trouble. So for instance, the CEO, who had a terrible quarter speaking in front of his company, gets up there and says, hey guys, we're doing great. Not exactly what we want, but this is really on track, and we're kind of off in the projection, so we're killing it right now. Or right guy at a networking event who goes off and pretends that he has a kind of status at his company that he can hook people up. He goes, a man, just send me your resume, I'll get you a job. No problem, and he's got no such power. This happens all the time. People fake power that they don't have. Or a guy who wants to impress a girl takes you to a nice restaurant really great, but rather than acting like, this is a special occasion, pretends that this is something he does all the time. That kind of stuff does not fly. So here's what you want to do: fake it till you make it. And the way that you speak, and the way that you carry yourself, your tonality, the way that you just stick you late, the way that you breathe, that's going to affect your head, which is going to actually change the way that you feel, right? Your physiology does change your emotion, and we've talked about this at length. I don't want to go into it here. But when this comes to the things that are coming out of your mouth, be honest to a fault. So for instance, that CEO might get up there and say, guys, listen, this quarter was a disappointment. We did not hit our numbers. We didn't do the things that we needed to do. I've spoken to many of you, I've reflected on what needs to happen, and here's how we're going to do it. Going forward, the confidence that he speaks with is what's going to inspire people to hang on, to continue. And the honesty is going to make them trust him. That hold a cow. Like, we can do this. He's not just going to sugarcoat everything. Take the guy who takes a woman to a nice restaurant, right? Rather than going in to be like, oh yeah, pretending he knows the maitre d', or that it happens all the time, or talking about his investment portfolio, or whatever it is. You might go in there and say, listen, I gotta be honest. This place is way nicer than the restaurants I normally go to. So I hope that you're impressed by the food and that makes you laugh extra hard at my jokes. Right? Play it off funny. But you can let people know this is special. This is nice. That honesty is going to let her know, which is a huge concern for women. By the way, that the men that they're dating are not being real, are not being honest when you show things that might not be to your favor, right? And you're not doing it in a calculated way, but you're doing it because it's honest. That's going to create a bond of trust between you that is actually going to make the relationship go much better. The thing that ties all three of these together is this: the charismatic person, the person that is comfortable with themselves, is comfortable with the truth, and they can sit with it. They recognize this is going to make me connect really well with some people, and some people are not going to connect. Well, but I will not be disrespected. I'm not afraid to share my opinion. And I'm not going to pretend that something is the case when it's not. So that is a thread that ties them all together. And I hope you see it in our other videos because it's a big one. There are other things that can sabotage first impressions. In fact, one of them is the order that you create these 4 emotions. And there are 4 emotions that create an amazing first impression. Get the order right, it's amazing. You get the order wrong, it's sometimes not so great. So if you're curious what that is, hit the link here. It's going to take you to another video that shows you what those 4 emotions are. and more importantly, shows you the order that you need to hit them in, because that's the thing, a lot of people create them, but they don't do it in the right order. So if you want to see that, click the link, drop your email. It's going to take you to that video right away if you guys have liked this video. Please subscribe to the channel. We're making more of these videos, at least one a week. It's going to show up on your homepage when we do it. You'll see my face or you'll see a charisma breakdown. And sometimes we do people that are fictional characters like Tyrion Lannister. Anyone for Game of Thrones. We did Muhammad Ali. Maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger coming up, but we take these very charismatic people and break down exactly what they're doing so that we can learn from them. So those are some of my favorites. They take a long time, but should have one of those coming very soon. So if you want to see them, subscribe to the channel. And of course, any comments, any questions, dropping the comment box below. They inspire a lot of these videos and a lot of the people that we do breakdowns of. In any event, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.